So we go now into research data. Okay, let's skip this. I won't read all of this. This is just something coming from Clifford Lynch, from the director of the Coalition of Network Information. And he's speaking about the growing demand for services, ensuring that the data is properly documented, it is correctly placed into a well-known and well-defined format, and it's preserved over suitable periods of time. And I think we all here understand the need, the growing need in terms of research data management. Now, this is something that is discussed already for years. We are following, the new researchers, new papers, new books coming as time goes by. But I do think that now we have reached some sort of a period in time where there's more understanding in terms of what is needed for such a system. And that's why we are now even more actively engaging into a work in order to increase the support of research data in Rosetta. I'm not saying, by the way, that today we are supporting everything. As I said, it's something that's still work in process, even in the community. But we are working with different entities. So it could be, of course, we're looking at international standards for metadata and so on. We are involved in research efforts. So we are part of an Horizon 2020 project called Treasures. It's not approved yet. Hopefully it will be approved in January by the EU. But it's some sort of a technical registry or a global knowledge base for research data and components, and then Rosetta will be integrated with it in terms of what files can be managed in the system and how you should manage such file, and technical metadata and so on. We have the community knowledge base, as we said, and maybe one of our strongest tools is Rosetta Advisory Group. Rosetta Advisory Group is a group of all the Rosetta users, the Rosetta community. We have regular meetings, yearly meetings, and more. But more than that, we have working groups that are constructed by different members of the Rosetta institutions, and they are providing input for us. For instance, there is a working group on collection management or on access rights and other. And what we are looking into now is forming a working group related specifically to research data. So yesterday we were at BSB and spoke also with the University of Beirut. They are very interested in this. ETH, of course, is interested in such a thing, and we'll be more than happy to have more partners. So also, by the way, not only in Europe, we're looking also at the US and the UK, because we want to make sure that the system will address the needs that I think now more and more universities are better in understanding what they want, and want to make sure that we are following the needs that are coming from the community. So I'll speak about the objective of research data management in terms of course, you need to have enables integrity, so the verification of your research, the accessibility, then able to the ease and discovery and accessing the research output, impact both in terms of impact management and in terms of facilitating collaboration, because your research data is out there. Efficiency, it enables reuse of research, so no need to duplicate the work. In terms of research data management, it's very important, of course, the issue of privacy of the content, and it should comply with funding organizations like, in your case, at DFG, in the States NSF, and others. So this is the objective which we're trying to follow, and some of the challenges we have, and definitely it's not a full list. As I said, it's gigantic files with a huge number of files within a single deposit. It's not a book. As I said, it's a zip file or directory with, I don't know, 50,000 files. So you need to see how you manage this. Diverse formats, many of them are proprietary. There's a complex relationship between the files. Yesterday, when we spoke with the University of Beirut, they were speaking about how you can know, for instance, that a specific research, what other researches were derived from it, and what are the origins of it, and stuff like this. How you express this relationship in terms of metadata. I'm not saying, by the way, that we have the answers right now for all of these questions. Definitely for this one, it's something we need to still think. How do we do this? There is, of course, no standardization of metadata, because it's coming from multiple disciplines, and we need to support all diverse access rights and retention period policies. So, for instance, when we were here at Düsseldorf at the University of Düsseldorf 2 months ago, I think, we're discussing this, where the arises the need to assign access, because if in a regular, I would say, Rosetta institution, for the library knows and can dictate what would be the access rights, here you might have a specific research group, which is one professor from this university, one from Yale, and one from somewhere else. And how do you manage this in terms of giving access only to this group? So we will be adding APIs to access rights. We'll be able to define and create the policies from outside the system into Rosetta. Of course, all the need with privacy issues, how you deal with this. The data needs to be citable and accessible over time, so you need to have DOIs, PURLs, and so on. And finally, it's not a cookie cutter. In terms, because you have so many, it's not, as I say, one library that can dictate what will happen. You have so many research groups, so many universities, so many institutions involved, and each one of them, of these groups, have their own needs, their own policies, their own users, their own flows. So you need to have a system that you'll be able to configure it to work with the different and changing requirements. So I tried to speak a little about how this is done in Rosetta, and as I said, we are still looking also in enhancing it, and some of the features you see here will be available. We're already on the plan for the 2015 roadmap. So if we are thinking of the research data lifecycle, when the researchers create the research data, then actually what they need to do is to deposit the content into the system, ingest it, manage it, preserve it, and at the end, the system should provide discovery delivery mechanism. So if we're thinking on this force over here, of course, this one is, of course, out of scope for us because we are not the researchers who are providing research data. So we see the other forms as part of this Rosetta system that we've seen before. And as I said, we need to make sure now how each one of these different components can work with the specific needs of research data. So I'll try to go fast on this in terms of deposits. So there's a need to allow easy and flexible deposit for researchers. That we say we have the web deposit, but we can integrate also with other, and we'll see this in the ETH presentation, how it's integrated with, for instance, a window-based application by Docker team. Ensure the data and metadata completeness. So here Rosetta can have this, what we are calling a metadata policy or a submission agreement. In terms, you can mandate what metadata is mandatory or what type of content is mandatory in this specific flow, and you can mandate the researchers to have this, to fill this thing. You need to make sure that you can enable the future edit to submit content. It's not like a book. Once it's submitted, that it's not changed. Normally, it's not changed. With research data, it's changing over the time. So we have already APIs that will enable the edit of submissions, so the ability to change files, to add files, and so on. And of course, everything should be audited in terms of what has changed and when. And this is currently not yet available on the web deposit you've seen before, but it's on the roadmap to add this also on the web page. And as we said, we need to support different retention periods, different access rights. So we are looking into adding also more APIs for this, so to be able to do this with new flows. Also today, the system is very configurable in terms of access rights policies, but it should be configured from the system and not from outside the system. So just an example of this. This is an example of a proof of concept we've done specifically on research data with the University of Düsseldorf last year. This is a metadata or the metadata form that we've built with them. So these were the specific requirements in their case. This is an example of a submission application. So this is built not for research data, but built for other submissions by the National Library of New Zealand. This is a web-based application. We can add CMS identifier here, for instance. We can add different metadata, and then you can just log into the system and deposit it. This system creates the METS file and deposits it into the system. This is another example of a nice tool when you can this is Windows Explorer. you can just select a couple of files, right-click, send to, you probably cannot read this, send to this instant deposit tool. It opens, format the data fields, that's it, and deposit it into the system. So something very easy to use for researchers, for instance. Okay, sorry, so this is for the regarding deposit. Regarding its ingest, so you need to make sure that the data is accurate. So that's why we have all the checksum generation and checks. Support of multiple file types. I've discussed the Rosetta plugins mechanism. The complex relationships, as I said, this is something that we have already in the struct map in Rosetta in a way to describe some of the relationships, but we need to work on describing even more complex of one. And I've spoken a little about the need to scale the system to work with huge files and a huge amount of files in a SIP. So this is another example coming from the University of Düsseldorf demo. This is the list of formats that is available in the system. And when we've worked with them, so for instance, they've created a specific format, DCOM I think it was, which is related specifically to some research data output that there is. And now it's available in the system as part of the formats. And then you can, for the format, you can associate an application with it. You can associate risks with it. We can associate format identification tools with it, and so on. So this is added. This is, by the way, this is Rosetta Management's UI. So as you can see, it's really quite similar to the deposit UI that you've seen before. In terms of publishing, so of course the content need to be retrieval. That's why we have all the publishing mechanism, and we are doing this using well-known standards. There is, by the way, an enabled data citation in terms of, I'm just running a bit quick because I still want to have some demo. Data citation in terms of you can create DOIs and PRLs in Rosetta, and you can add your own plugins if you have a specific DOI system that you want to integrate with. And share and reuse with the research broader research community. This is, by the way, something that we are still looking for inputs, because we are, as I said, we are publishing with these standards. But whether we still don't know whether there are specific research community sites or, I don't know, delivery system that we need to publish to them and not just to the regular system we are publishing. Maybe this will also use the same standard, I don't know. But this is something we are looking at the input, whether, I don't know, maybe integration with journals and stuff like this. This is something that we are looking to enhance into Rosetta and looking for input from this advisory or working group that I was speaking about this before. This example from Primo at the University of Düsseldorf again, and this is, you see, we've added this. So now this content, the research data content, is available through their system. I mean, was available through the system during this POC. In terms of delivery, so as I said, the fact that we have out-of-the-box viewer, but you can add any additional viewers as a plugin, so you can enable you to make all types of different types of content available or accessible over time. Security in terms of access rights of delivery and download. Track the research impact. So we have statistics on the usage of the file. I don't know if I have time, I can show it in the demo, how you can actually we have a report in the system saying how many times a specific file was delivered or was requested by users. So you can manage your research and have different statistics on this and so on. And in terms of controlling the delivery data, we have what we are calling a viewer preprocessor. So some things that you can do with the file before delivering it to the user. For instance, if you would like to have a watermark on it, or something like this, before, you know, some watermark on the file with saying it's a draft, or it's saying it's a propriety of university, you can add this as part of the file before delivery, or you can add this, by the way, consistently before. I won't go into this. This is an example of the Internet Archive book reader within Rosetta. You cannot really see too much over here, but if you can see some purple over here, it's this is using Metz Alto, so I've searched for a specific item, and then it highlighted all the time that it appears in the paper. This example, I've mentioned the ability to add different plugins into the system. So this is an example from the National Library of New Zealand. They are harvesting websites into the Rosetta system. So this is an example of a website. You can see the website over here. It says Elson Shans from New Zealand. It's some sport champion from New Zealand. This entire website is available within the Rosetta system of the National Library. This is the IE number. So this is, they've used a plugin into the system, which now they can, a viewer plugin, and you can navigate through the entire website from within Rosetta. In terms of management, as I said, everything you should know, because you need to make sure that the data is authenticated and reliable. Every action that is taking place on the content should be stored in the system, and you have this audit file as part of the provenance metadata of the object, so you know what happened to the content. If someone has changed his research results, it will be reflected in the system. Privacy, I think we've discussed before. Collection management. I think I'll skip this. Supporting different types of users, different types of role within the system. And again, by the way, this is something that we should still understand, whether we should add specific users for the means of research data management. I'm not sure about this, but it's something we are waiting for input as well. And in terms of supporting metadata standards, so as I said, we are natively supporting Dublin Core. Other metadata could be added, source metadata, but we need to see whether we should extend even more our metadata support. This is the collection management screen, and this is just, you can see here, this is the IE with all the files. It's got intellectual entity, all the files containing, and this is the metadata editor within the system. The last one over here is the preservation requirements. So we've discussed a little the need to support distributed storage. So to make sure that you can use different types of storage, and the storage could be located in different places at the institution. Long-term availability, of course, this is a core functionality of Rosetta. Ensure the data integrity. I think we've also discussed this. And lastly, the ensure data comprehensibility in terms of everything, all the metadata is represented also on the disk, so you can always know what you have deposited into the system. This is just an example of a risk that was added by the University of Düsseldorf. Again, in this POC, they've created a specific format, and then they created a risk, a zero application risk, and then they were able to create a preservation plan for this types of content. So I'll just speak one or two slides regarding the some work we've done. So the first example is ETH. So I won't cover it at all here. It will be covered in the next presentation. In terms of what we've done with the University of Düsseldorf, so this POC, the goal for this was to demonstrate the ingest capabilities from 4 different data types and 4 different institutions. So these different institutions were part of this POC, the University Hospital, Library, and 2 research centers. And then they wanted to see how the preservation capability is demonstrated, the publishing and the delivery of content, and the integration with external viewers. So as part of this POC, these 4 different institutions or entities, the departments, were all using the same either web interface or some pre-ingest tool that was created for them to ingest content into the system, where Rosetta was its backbone for preserving and managing the system, and at the end it was made accessible via Primo. So this is an example that we've done with them. By the way, the POC, one of the challenges, and definitely this is a challenge, was if we said what were the goals here. So in terms of integration with external viewers, this was something that was was easy to achieve, because the specific files did not have any viewers that could be integrated easily. Into for instance, into the Rosetta, into Primo, into Rosetta web UI. So this is definitely a challenge one of the challenges research data will have, how to make different type of content accessible to different users.